Shut up and sit down.
Hi guys, this is Bigmeks Workshop and Paint Studio. I'm Dodge, and for Monday's tutorial I'm going to do a requested one for the green stuff. Andy would not shut up about this one for months, so we're going to start doing some stitches in some flesh because Andy collects Night Lords and wants to do a bunch of Night Lord conversions and add some extra details to them. So first off, this is a piece of green stuff and it's about 2mm in thickness. All I'm going to start doing is going over the sculpting tool to make a rough loincloth shape. It doesn't have to be too neat at this point. And yeah, maybe a little bit out of focus. The reason for that is, again, it's on a bit of plastic as usual with some Vaseline, and this time I'm holding it onto a bit of white plastic card so I can keep better control of it on camera and you can see what's going on. Now once we've got the outer parameters of the loincloth or cape or whatever it is you want to make doing this, we're going to do another line, but this is not going to be even close to... No, it's not even going to be as engraved as the rest of it, because later on we're going to cut that excess off with a hobby knife. We're just going to make some simple grooves for this one. We're going to make it look like some flesh has been took from somebody and stitched back together. I tried this 3 times and couldn't get a decent enough bit of footage for you, so this is like the 3rd time. And what I did learn while doing this is, number 1, when doing the holes for your stitching to go in, you have to pull away from the area that's stitched together. This will raise up the flesh areas and make it look more natural when you do put the stitches in. And don't be afraid to open those up quite a bit, because when you start putting the stitches in you can close them again with your tool. I also learnt that doing this, if you want the stitches smaller, you just use a smaller tool for this job. And that's the only difference really. If you want really small stitches, you want a sewing needle or something, then all you've got to do is roll yourself up a bit of green stuff, and obviously you want it a little bit thinner than the holes that you've made. And I also picked up a technique here for keeping in control of this so it's not quite so fiddly. That bit was a little bit too big, but simply cut in all the way down and then pull away. This will cause this little bit of green stuff to stick to your hobby knife, which makes then feeding it into the first hole a lot easier. Obviously you can see me mucking about, dropping it all over the place here, but later on, after a few of them, it's a very quick technique to pick up. Just cut through, pull away, and it will bond to that bit of the knife. All you really need to do at this point is re-sculpt them circle holes. What will happen when you cut this bit of stitching is the ends will feather out ever so slightly, and what we're doing here is just tucking the feathered out parts underneath the original stitch, and that's what we're going to use to bond the 2 bits of green stuff together, so you won't actually see any joins. And then it's just a case of manipulating the area around it and until you're happy with it. But I'll show you this again because it's actually really easy once you've done it once or twice. See, that's feathered both those corners, and it barely bonds to the knife at all, but just enough. Then poke it into the right hole and just poke those corners into the hole, and the rest of the green stuff will curve naturally because you're bending it in the middle by applying pressure. Now what I'm going to do is continue to do all these, and as you can see, and I think it took me 20 minutes, half an hour to make one of these. Now obviously it's going to be starting to set and everything else, so all we've got to do really is just keep manipulating it, and as you can see, those little lines that we scored all the way underneath the stitches, they're going to be deep enough hopefully when it's done. Or they should be anyway, as long as the green stuff doesn't puff up too much, which it has a tendency to do. But either way, they should be scored in more than enough to show up underneath the stitches. I also realised, why cutting green stuff with a hobby knife? Don't slice it, just apply pressure and then pull the knife back out, because otherwise you're going to distort whatever green stuff you're working with. And then pull away from the piece that you want, and be very careful with this, because you know you don't want to distort that work. But in all fairness, if you do end up distorting the work that you've been doing with the stitches, it just closes the holes up a little bit more around the stitches. So that could probably be used to make it look even neater, but I haven't tried that, so you'll have to try it yourself or let me know. The problem I'm having here is because it's on a little piece of transparent plastic, the hobby knife's cutting through that and the green stuff staying stuck to it, so it gets a bit fiddly. But then all we're going to do is take this off and actually apply it to something, which I didn't do in the cloak video, but I'll try and apply more of the green stuff things we do to an actual model of some kind. And I'll apologise for last week's video as well, not being there. There's so much going on in the studio right now, but we do have a lot of videos lined up coming out. I've only really used the one tool for this. This is just the opposite side of the same tool. They're just wax sculpting tools. And before fiddling around with any of it, we need to make sure it's got a bonded back surface. Now that can be achieved with super glue. Just a little blob of super glue will immediately bond that there, but the problem you have there is if you're not comfortable or happy with the position that it's in, then it's sort of stuck there because it's super glue. So what I've done is I'm pushing it onto the belt part, and then I'm going to start pulling up the excess underneath the belt so it looks like a folded part of skin, and then just fold it down on itself. Just a case of moving bits around ever so slightly until you're actually comfortable with it and it's like, yeah, that looks good, it looks like it can flow. And it does pay to attach some of it to the leg, just gives it more of a bond while it sets. You don't have to, you could just leave it hanging there. It's entirely up to you, but you could probably make capes and everything out of this one as well. And that's it guys, stitched flesh for Night Lords or anyone else you want to do some stitched flesh for. I hope you liked it, I hope it helps. Hit that like, hit subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for watching guys.